Welcome to our Together on Mission podcast, brought to you by the Baptist Union of Victoria and hosted by our Director of Mission and Ministries, Reverend Daniel Bullock. Daniel will be joined by a guest from our Victorian Baptist family each week for a brief discussion that aims to encourage you in your personal walk of faith and give you some practical suggestions that you can implement through your week. Throughout this year, the podcast will be focusing on the theme of being and sharing the good news. For the next 2 episodes, Daniel will be joined by Reverend Nathan Steer, Senior Pastor at Camberwell Baptist Church. Over the past 12 years, Nathan has completed a Bachelor of Ministry, a Master's in Theological Studies, and has been ordained by the Baptist Union of Victoria. Nathan is married to Jess and is dad to 3 beautiful young girls. One of his favourite things to do is get outdoors and enjoy the beauty of God's creation. Nathan and Daniel will talk together about good news journeys with regard to restoration and relationships. And now let's hear from Daniel and Nathan.
Well, welcome back to our podcast. Once again, we have Nathan Steer reflecting on the theme of restoration and relationships. Nathan, we've known each other for about 30 years now, since you came to Melbourne from Barraport as a student. You initially started drafting, but ended up as a pastor. Now, you touched on a little bit of that last week, but I wonder if you could share the journey with us a little more in depth. You know, how did you get to become a pastor really, and you know, make that your career?
Yeah, I would have said, Dan, I'm probably one of the most unlikely candidates when it came for ministry. I was quiet, I was shy, probably not the most gifted of people, and yet God had a plan and a purpose beyond what I imagined. So while I was drafting, I started volunteering at the church, and it started to bring to life this seed that God had planted in a number of years ago when I was going through high school. As I waded into some of the opportunities that you gave me, I have to admit there was times when I said yes just because I didn't know how to say no. And yet God in the midst of that slowly transitioned me into this ministry space where he laid this call and he gifted me for a purpose, and it's been just amazing to watch the way God has set me on this journey.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so any other steps in there? Any discouragements along the journey of ministry? Because surely we've been talking about walking and hiking and stuff like that, and in the walking and the hiking there's lots of ups and downs. It couldn't be, oh look, I decided that, you know, God wants me in this and away we go and it's all happily ever after. Or has there been some more challenging parts in that?
I know, plenty of challenges. Yeah. Look, transitioning between churches and helping churches transition, and just your own internal battles. I think there's plenty of challenges that you face along the journey.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nathan. We'll come back and talk again. We're going to continue to talk and reflect on our experience walking the Larapinta today. During our hike, we made a significant effort to watch the sunrise and the sunset. The variety of colours both in the sky and surrounding hills and the countryside was actually breathtaking. Each night we also spent sometimes 10, 20, even 30 minutes just gazing into the night sky as it filled with the stars, becoming clearer and clearer as it got darker. These times were, for me, a highlight. I was in awe of God's marvellous creation. I imagine the psalmist had a similar experience in mind and to mine and Nathan's when reflecting on creation and writing words like, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the works of his hands," from Psalm 19. Or in Psalm 8, where he writes, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is humankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them." The psalmist, it seems, in those psalms, is in awe of God's creation, acknowledging that God's creation is nothing but marvellous, from the smallest blade of grass, the rocky riverbed, the majestic hills and the ranges, the moon, the stars, the trees and bushes, all reflect his glory. Creation is God's handiwork, his artwork, his masterpiece, giving testimony to his power, love, and existence. No wonder the psalmist ponders about how small we humans are in comparison to the vast, awesome universe created by God. Yet the psalmist acknowledges that we matter to God, that we are the jewel in his creative crown. He delights in us. Sometimes I think we simply need to sit in this truth and praise and worship God as we express gratitude. This is one of the reasons I like to hike. Being in nature brings me close to God. It restores my soul, it strengthens my faith, and brings forth a grateful heart that marvels in the truth that God values me in the midst of such vastness. Nath, I was wondering what happened for you in your spirit, in your faith, as you walked the Larapinta, as you took in the sunrises and the sunset, as you gazed at the stars and reflected on creation.
Yeah, I was going back through my photos to recapture some of those moments. The sunrises and sunsets were spectacular. The mountain gorges stretched on as far as the eye could see. The sky full of stars all through the night. In fact, there was one night we were standing outside and this light just appeared for 10 seconds. It fell through the sky, lighting up everything, and then it was gone. It was just these mind-blowing moments. Mm-hmm. I think my experience was a little bit like Paul when he talks about in 2 Corinthians, outwardly we are wasting away, but inwardly we are being renewed day by day. And, those days where my body was flagging, days when you're weary and aching, and every day is when just to keep going, every time my stick hit the ground I was praying, but no matter how much my body hurt, it was like my heart was being renewed and restored in these moments. That my spirit was coming alive in awe of the beauty and the enormity of God's creative genius. Like you mentioned, it's like the whole of creation sings to God's majesty. And in these moments, and as we walked, it was like we were invited into this song to celebrate God's divine character and his awesome power and his genius in creation.
Yeah, well, I think you've described that brilliantly, what it means to be in creation and what creation can do for us in relation to our faith and worshipping God. But in the hustle and bustle of life, and for those of us who don't have the benefit of living day to day in a vast landscape or going hiking into the ranges for a couple of weeks, how can we capture a sense of God's glory in creation and understand our value to him?
I think, as you say, it's so easy, isn't it, to get caught up in all the hustle and bustle of life. It's easy to lose perspective, to lose sight of who God is and who we are to God. Yet if you go back to the creation account, we have this beautiful, poetic script that captures the creative power of God. He created the heavens and the earth. He created the earth and the skies. He parted the water from the land, filled them with animals and living plants. He made everything and he said it was good. And so it sense of reason, doesn't it, that spending time in creation is good for our souls. That it allows us to capture something of the beauty and the wonder of who God is, his eternal power and his divine nature, as Paul talks about in Romans. But the creation account also reveals something about us. Because when he added humanity to his creation, it's like things improved. It went to very good. And so the way this reads, it's like humanity is the pinnacle of his creation, that we were made in his image, made to enjoy relationship with him. And that's why God comes looking for them in the garden. And so we were made by God, loved by God. In fact, humanity was made, day one was rest and restoration, enjoying God in his creation in the garden. This is what prepared them for their unique purpose of tending to God's work.
Yeah.
Well, the scale and the beauty of Larapinta was amazing. The reality is you don't have to go, do you, to Central Australia. No. You don't have to move to move beyond the hustle and bustle of life. All you have to do is get out in your garden and spend some time with God. Enjoy some time in creation. Pick up a leaf and look at the intricacies of how it is made. Stop and smell the roses. Go to the beach and listen to the waves. Watch the birds in your garden. While we're walking, I remember that experience of seeing the budgies in this burnt out tree, the yellow and green budgies, and just remembering how God looks after the birds of the air and how much more he loves and values us as those made in his image. So creation has an incredible way, doesn't it, of reminding us about who God is and how much we matter to him.
Yeah, I think you've captured that really well about some of the simple things that we can do to experience creation and to experience God's handiwork, and also to reflect on our value in the midst of that, because we are certainly the jewel in the crown, if you think as human beings. Yeah, I'm wondering if you can help us, though, reflect on how taking time to slow down, not just in creation, but to slow down, how that can restore our mind, body and spirit, and understand both God's glory and our value again to him, how that can help us be and share good news, the good news of Jesus, to a hurting world around us. Why is this important, really, for not only our own personal faith and building ourselves up, but by being witnesses and being people who can say, hey, this is our God. This is the Creator God, and He can impact and change and restore your soul. How do you address that?
I think a tendency, and it happens all the time, we make faith, sharing our faith into something we do.
Yeah.
And it often becomes something we have to do, we're forced to do, and so we push ourselves, when an authentic witness it's more about what God has done and what God is doing in and through us. And that's why important, as you say, to stop and to slow down and to allow God to minister to us, heart, mind, soul, and strength. Jesus, that's what He says, isn't it? The first and greatest commandment is what? To love God. Mm-hmm. To love God, heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second is to love others as yourself. And the way it's written, it almost suggests that loving God is a precursor to being able to love others well. And so loving others comes out of knowing God and having our lives restored and transformed so that we can live as He calls us to live. I was reading somewhere this week that when God restores something, He restores to a place greater than it was before. And so whenever God restores us, we become a little more whole, a little more the person, the people He created us to be. And out of that comes this passion to love and serve others, to share Jesus with those around us. That's when our witness becomes authentic and most effective. And so it is, authentic witness is not so much just what we do. It's about being transformed in the image of Jesus, to be a little more who He made us to be, so we can look and laugh and live like Jesus and share His light and His life and His love with those around us.
Fantastic, Nathan. Thanks for your reflection. Thanks for coming and being with us over the past 2 weeks. I'm sure that you would have encouraged folks who are listening, and I want to wish you all the very best as you continue to pastor at Camberwell Baptist. 14 years, just starting, just getting started, and I'm sure that your church will continue to be a blessing to the community with your leadership. So thank you so much for coming and being with us on these podcasts. My prayer for our listeners is that they will find the time to reflect on creation and their relationship with God. Make some time today to look at the flowers and the bees, the animals, and all the small details that make up the design of the physical world. And as you do so, contemplate your role in God's creation, your value in God's eyes, and reflect on the depth of your relationship with Him and His creation. Until next week, God bless.